So sit back, relax, put your feet up, but most of all enjoy. Much love.
The earliest known version of this tale is found in the French narrative Perrault, written between 1330 and 1344. The folktale begins with a princess whose parents are told by a wicked fairy that their daughter will die when she pricks her finger on a particular item. In Basile's version, the princess pricks her finger on a piece of flax. In Perrault's and the Grimm brothers' versions, the item is a spindle. The parents rid the kingdom of these items in the hopes of protecting their daughter, but the prophecy is fulfilled regardless. Instead of dying, as was foretold, the princess falls into a deep sleep. After some time, she is found by a prince and is awakened. In Giambattista Basile's dark version of Sleeping Beauty, Sun, Moon, and Talia, the Sleeping Beauty is named Talia. By asking wise men and astrologers to predict her future after her birth, her father, who is a great lord, learns that Talia will be in danger from a splinter of flax. Talia, now grown, sees an old woman spinning outside her window. Intrigued by the sight of the twirling spindle, Talia invites the woman over and takes the distaff from her hand to stretch the flax. Tragically, the splinter of flax gets embedded under her nail, and she is put to sleep. After Talia falls asleep, she is seated on a velvet throne and her father, to forget his misery of what he thinks is her death, closes the doors and abandons the house forever. One day, while a king is walking by, one of his falcons flies into the house. The king knocks, hoping to be let in by someone, but no one answers, and he decides to climb in with a ladder. He finds Talia alive but unconscious, and gathers the first fruits of love. Afterwards, he leaves her in bed and goes back to his kingdom. Though Talia is unconscious, she gives birth to twins, one of whom keeps sucking her finger. Talia awakens because the twin has sucked out the flax that got stuck in her finger. When she wakes up, she discovers that she is a mother and has no idea what happened to her. One day, the king decides he wants to go see Talia again. He goes back to the palace to find her awake and a mother to his twins. He informs her of who he is, what has happened, and they end up bonding. After a few days, the king has to leave to go back to his realm, but promises Talia that he will return to take her to his kingdom. When he arrives back in his kingdom, his wife hears him saying Talia, Sun, and Moon in his sleep. She bribes and threatens the king's secretary to tell her what is going on. After the queen learns the truth, she pretends she is the king and writes to Talia asking her to send the twins, because he wants to see them. Talia sends her twins to the king and the queen tells the cook to kill the twins and make dishes out of them. She wants to feed the king his children. Instead, the cook takes the twins to his wife and hides them. He then cooks 2 lambs and serves them as if they were the twins. Every time the king mentions how good the food is, the queen replies, "Eat, you are eating of your own." Later, the queen invites Talia to the kingdom and is going to burn her alive, but the king appears and finds out what's going on with his children and Talia. He then orders that his wife be burned along with those who betrayed him. Since the cook actually did not obey the queen, the king thanks the cook for saving his children by giving him rewards. The story ends with the king marrying Talia and living happily ever after. Perrault's tale is a much more subtle and pared-down version than Basile's story in terms of the more immoral details. At the christening of a king and queen's long-wished-for child, 7 good fairies are invited to be the infant princess's godmothers and give her gifts. The 7 fairies attend the banquet at the palace and each is given a golden box containing golden utensils adorned with diamonds and rubies. Soon after, an old fairy enters the palace, overlooked because she has not left her tower in 50 years, and everyone believed her to be cursed or dead. Nevertheless, the 8th fairy is seated and given a box of ordinary utensils. When she hears the 8th fairy muttering some threats, the 7th, fearing that the uninvited guest will harm the princess, hides herself behind some curtains, so she can be the last to give a gift. 6 of the invited fairies offer their gifts of pure beauty, wit, grace, dance, song, and musical talent to the infant princess. The 8th fairy, who is very angry about not being invited, curses the infant princess so that she will one day prick her finger on a spindle of a spinning wheel and die. The 7th fairy then offers her gift, an attempt to reverse the evil fairy's curse, but she can only do so partially. Instead of dying, the princess will fall into a deep sleep for 100 years and be awakened by a prince. The king then orders all spinning wheels in the kingdom banned and destroyed in an attempt to avert the 8th fairy's curse on his daughter. 15 or 16 years pass, and one day, when the king and queen are away, the princess wanders through the palace rooms and comes upon an old woman, implied to be the evil fairy in disguise, spinning with her spindle. The princess, who has never seen a spinning wheel before, asks the old woman if she can try it. The curse is fulfilled when the princess pricks her finger on the spindle and instantly falls into a deep sleep. The old woman cries for help and attempts are made to revive the princess. The king attributes this to fate and has the princess carried to the finest room in the palace and placed upon a bed of gold and silver embroidered fabric. The 7th fairy arrives in her dragon-drawn chariot. Having great powers of foresight, the fairy sees that the princess will awaken to distress when she finds herself alone, so the fairy puts everyone in the castle, except the king and queen, to sleep. The king and queen kiss their daughter goodbye and leave the castle to ban others from disturbing her, but the good fairy summons a forest of trees, brambles, and thorns to spring up around the place, shielding it from the outside world. 100 years pass, and a prince from another royal family spies the hidden castle during a hunting expedition. His attendants tell him differing stories regarding the castle until an old man recounts his father's words. Within the castle lies a very beautiful princess who is doomed to sleep for 100 years until a king's son comes and awakens her. The prince then braves the tall trees, brambles, and thorns which part at his approach, and enters the castle. He passes the sleeping castle folk and comes across the chamber where the princess lies asleep on the bed. Struck by the radiant beauty before him, he falls on his knees before her. The spell is broken, the princess awakens and bestows upon the prince a look more tender than a first glance might seem to warrant, then converses with the prince for a long time. Meanwhile, the servants of the castle awaken and go about their business. The prince and princess are later married by the chaplain in the castle chapel. After marrying the sleeping beauty in secret, the prince visits her for 4 years, and she bears him 2 children, unbeknownst to his mother, who is an ogre. When his father, the king, dies, the prince ascends the throne and he brings his wife, who is now 20 years old, and their 2 children, a 4-year-old daughter named Morning, and a 3-year-old son named Day, to his kingdom. One day, the new king must go to war against his neighbor, Emperor Cantalabute, and leaves his mother to govern the kingdom and look after his family. After her son leaves, the ogress queen mother sends her daughter-in-law to a house secluded in the woods and orders her cook to prepare Morning with sauce Robert for dinner. The kind-hearted cook substitutes a lamb for the princess, which satisfies the queen mother. She then demands Day, but the cook this time substitutes a kid for the prince, which also satisfies the queen mother. When the ogress demands that he serve up the sleeping beauty, the latter substitutes a hind prepared with sauce Robert, satisfying the ogress, and secretly reuniting the young queen with her children, who have been hidden by the cook's wife and maid. However, the queen mother soon discovers the cook's trick and she prepares a tub in the courtyard filled with vipers and other noxious creatures. The king returns home unexpectedly, and the ogress, her true nature having been exposed, throws herself into the tub and is fully consumed by the creatures. The king, young queen, and children then live happily ever after.
Thanks for watching this video. I hope to see you soon. Till the next time, much love.